My husband tried to access my bank account behind my back and installed hidden cameras in every room to monitor me, so I secretly planned my escape and left the state. His family blamed me when he lost his job after assaulting an officer at the airport. I'm writing this from a hotel room 3 states away from where I lived 2 weeks ago. I still check the door lock every hour. My hands shake when I hear footsteps in the hallway. I'm Dana, 28F, and my husband Sebastian, 31M, and I got married 10 months ago. We met in college through a mutual friend group during sophomore year. We didn't date right away. He was seeing someone else at the time and I was focused on my internship applications. We became close friends first, which everyone told us was the best foundation for a relationship. After graduation, we stayed in the same city and started dating about 4 years ago. Sebastian worked as an IT consultant for a mid-sized firm. I worked in supply chain management for a manufacturing company. We had separate apartments for the first 2 years of dating, then moved in together. His parents lived about an hour away. Mine were across the country. I saw his family maybe once every 2 months for Sunday dinners or birthday gatherings. His mother Joan was polite but not warm. His father Mike mostly talked about sports. His younger brother Derek was finishing up graduate school and rarely came to these dinners. The wedding was small. 50 people at a community center with catering from a local restaurant. We honeymooned in the Smoky Mountains for 5 days because neither of us could take more time off work. When we got back, everything seemed normal for about 3 months. It started with questions. Sebastian began asking where I was going every time I left the apartment. At first, I thought he was just making conversation. I would tell him I was meeting my coworker Annie for coffee or going to the grocery store. He would nod and go back to his laptop. Then the questions got more specific. He wanted to know which coffee shop. What time I would be back. Whether Annie's husband would be there too. When I went to visit my friend Marissa who lived 40 minutes away, he asked for her address. He said it was in case of an emergency. I gave it to him because that seemed reasonable. After about a month of this, he started checking my phone. I came home from a work dinner one night and my phone was on the kitchen counter instead of in my purse where I had left it. The next morning, he asked me who Nathan was. Nathan was my new team lead at work. We had exchanged maybe 15 text messages total, all about project deadlines and meeting schedules. I showed Sebastian the messages. He read through all of them twice. He apologized and said he was just making sure I was safe. He said his ex-girlfriend had cheated on him in college and it made him cautious. I had known about the ex-girlfriend. She had apparently started seeing someone else during their senior year without telling Sebastian. I understood that kind of thing could leave a mark on someone. I told him I would never do that to him. But it didn't stop. He started looking up my friends on social media. He would ask me questions about people I barely knew from high school who had commented on my posts. He wanted to know about Annie's divorce from 3 years ago. He asked if Marissa's boyfriend had a criminal record. When I asked him why he was digging into my friends' lives, he said he was just being thorough. He said he needed to know who I was spending time with. The real problem started about 2 months ago. Sebastian said we needed to combine our bank accounts. We had kept our finances separate after getting married. We split rent and utilities down the middle. We each paid for our own car insurance and phone bills. We took turns buying groceries. This system had worked fine for us. He said married couples should have joint accounts. He said it would be easier to save for a house. He kept bringing it up every single day. I finally asked him why it mattered so much. He said he wanted to be able to manage our money properly. I asked what that meant. He said he could make sure we were spending wisely and saving enough. I told him I was perfectly capable of managing my own money. I had a degree in business. I had been supporting myself since college graduation. He said that wasn't the point. He said he just wanted to help. I said no. We fought about it for 3 weeks straight. Every evening when he got home from work, he would bring it up again. Then his company assigned him to a project in Portland. He would be gone for 12 days. He spent the week before his trip preparing for it. He also spent that week trying one more time to convince me to link my bank account to his. I refused again. He stopped arguing about it 2 days before his flight. The night before he left, we were sitting on the couch. He had his laptop open going through his packing list. He looked over at me and said he wanted me to wear a tracking device while he was gone. Not a phone app. An actual physical tracker. The kind you clip onto a belt or put in a pocket. I stared at him. He said it was for my safety. He said Portland was far away and if something happened to me, he would want to know immediately. I asked him what he thought was going to happen. He said you never know. He said the world was dangerous for women living alone. I told him I wasn't living alone. I was living in our apartment in a building with a front desk security guard. He said the guard left at midnight. I told him I would be fine. He kept pushing. He said if I really loved him, I would do this one small thing to give him peace of mind while he was traveling for work. I said no. He got quiet. Then he said he would feel a lot better if I would just consider it. I said I had considered it and the answer was no. He closed his laptop and went to bed without saying anything else. The next morning, I told his mother about the tracker request. We were at their house because Joan had insisted on making Sebastian breakfast before his afternoon flight. I thought maybe she could talk some sense into him. Instead, she laughed and said Sebastian was always such a thoughtful husband. She said it was sweet that he cared so much about my well-being. His father said Sebastian was just being practical. Derek was there too. He said I should probably just wear the tracker if it made Sebastian less anxious about traveling. He said anxiety was a real thing and I should be more understanding. I left their house before breakfast was served. Sebastian flew out that afternoon. I drove him to the airport. We barely spoke in the car. When I dropped him off at departures, he kissed my cheek and said he would call me when he landed. He did. He called me at 9 p.m. and asked what I had done that day. I told him I had gone grocery shopping and watched a movie at home. He asked which movie. I told him. He asked what I bought at the grocery store. I listed items until he seemed satisfied. He called me every single night he was gone. The conversations lasted at least 40 minutes. He wanted detailed accounts of my day. Who I talked to. Where I went. What I ate. On the fourth night, I was at Annie's house for dinner. I told him I would call him back later. He called me 6 times before I finished eating. When I finally called him back, he asked why Annie's husband had answered one of the times he called. I hadn't realized her husband had picked up my phone. Sebastian said it was disrespectful for another man to touch my phone. On the 6th day, I was cleaning out the junk drawer in our kitchen. I found a small camera hidden behind a stack of takeout menus. It was about the size of a USB drive. It had a tiny lens on one end. I pulled it out and turned it over in my hand. It was still warm. I started looking around the apartment. I found another camera on top of the bookshelf in the living room, tucked behind a photo frame. There was one in the bedroom attached to the back of the alarm clock. There was one in the bathroom inside the vent cover. I sat on the bathroom floor for maybe 20 minutes. Then I put all the cameras back exactly where I had found them. I went to the hardware store and bought a screwdriver set. I came back and unscrewed the vent cover in the bathroom again. I looked closely at the camera inside. It had a small SD card slot. It was recording. I put everything back. I turned on the shower and sat on the floor with the water running. I made a list on my phone of everything I needed to do. Then I deleted the list and memorized it instead. Sebastian was supposed to come back on May 23rd. I had 12 days to figure out a plan. The first thing I did was go to my manager. Her name was Patricia and she had been with the company for 18 years. I closed her office door and asked if there were any openings at our other facilities. She asked if everything was okay. I said I needed a change. She said she would look into it and get back to me within 3 days. The second thing I did was check my bank account access. I logged in from my laptop. I changed my password. I set up 2-factor authentication with a code sent to my phone. I checked the login history. There were 3 attempts to access my account from an IP address I didn't recognize. All 3 attempts were from the week before Sebastian left for Portland. All 3 had failed. The third thing I did was find a lawyer. I looked up divorce attorneys in the city. I called 4 offices. 3 of them had consultations booked out for 2 weeks. The 4th one had an opening the next day. Her name was Ellen. I met with her in her office downtown. I told her about the cameras. I told her about the bank account attempts. I told her about the tracking device request. She asked if Sebastian had ever hit me. I said no. She asked if he had ever threatened me. I said no, not directly. She asked if I felt safe. I didn't answer that question. Ellen said she could file paperwork immediately. She said in our state, I didn't need to prove fault to get divorced. She said we could file for irreconcilable differences. She asked if Sebastian had any paperwork prepared. I said I didn't know. When I got home, I looked through his desk. He had divorce papers in the bottom drawer under a stack of old tax returns. They were filled out except for the signature lines. There were sections about custody of future children. There were sections about division of assets that included things we didn't own. Ellen had told me to bring any paperwork I found to our next meeting. I took photos of every page with my phone. Then I put everything back in the drawer. Patricia called me on the 8th day. She said there was an opening at the facility in Phoenix. It was a lateral move with the same title but the cost of living was lower, so they were offering a 12% salary increase to make up for the relocation. She said I would need to start in 3 weeks. I said yes. I called Ellen. She said she would file the papers. She said she could have Sebastian served when he landed at the airport. She said there was a sheriff's deputy who worked with her office regularly for service of process. I asked if that was legal. She said it was perfectly legal. I told her to do it. I started packing on the 9th day. I packed only when I was in the bathroom with the shower running. I took my clothes. I took my documents. I took my grandmother's jewelry and my laptop. I left all the furniture. I left the dishes and the kitchen appliances and the TV. I packed everything into 4 large boxes and 3 suitcases. On the 10th day, I called a moving company. I explained I needed a very fast move with no advance notice. The man on the phone asked when I needed them. I said in 2 days. He said they could do it but it would cost extra. I said that was fine. He asked for the destination address. I said I would be shipping the boxes to a storage facility in Phoenix and I would provide that address the morning of the move. I called the building manager and gave notice that I was moving out. The lease was in both our names. The manager said I couldn't just leave. I said I was getting divorced and I would not be paying rent after the end of the month. She said Sebastian would be responsible for it then. I said that was between her and Sebastian. Sebastian called me on the 11th night. He said he would be home by dinner time the next day. He said he missed me. He said he had something important to talk to me about when he got home. I asked what it was. He said he wanted to wait until he saw me in person. I said okay. He asked what I was doing. I said I was watching TV. He asked what show. I told him. He asked if I had been good while he was gone. I didn't answer. He laughed and said he was just making sure. The movers came at 10 a.m. on the 12th day. They loaded everything into their truck in 40 minutes. I gave them the storage facility address in Phoenix. They said the boxes would arrive in 4 days. I paid them in cash. I cleaned the entire apartment. I vacuumed the carpets. I wiped down the kitchen counters. I scrubbed the bathroom. I took photos of every room with my phone. I made sure the timestamps were visible in each photo. I left my keys on the kitchen counter. I left the cameras where they were. I took one last look around. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me. My flight to Phoenix left at 4 p.m. Sebastian's flight from Portland was scheduled to land at 5:30 p.m. Ellen had arranged for the deputy to meet him at baggage claim. I was at the gate waiting to board when my phone started ringing. It was Sebastian. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. I turned my phone off and got on the plane. Update 1: I landed in Phoenix and went straight to a hotel near the airport. The company was paying for 2 weeks of temporary housing while I found an apartment. I turned my phone back on when I got to the hotel room. I had 47 missed calls from Sebastian and 63 text messages. The text started out confused. He asked where I was. He asked why I wasn't at the apartment. He asked if something had happened. Then they got angrier. He said I had no right to leave without talking to him. He said I was overreacting. He said he was coming to find me. There were also 2 voicemails from Ellen. I called her back. She said the service had gone as planned but there had been a complication. The deputy had approached Sebastian at baggage claim and handed him the divorce papers. Sebastian had read the first page. Then he started yelling at the deputy. The deputy had asked him to calm down. Sebastian had shoved the deputy. Airport security got involved. Sebastian was arrested for assaulting an officer. Ellen said Sebastian's father had bailed him out 4 hours later. She said the assault charge meant I could file for a restraining order if I wanted one. She said the deputy was willing to testify about Sebastian's behavior. I said I would think about it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the desk chair propped under the door handle even though the door had a deadbolt. Every time I heard a noise in the hallway, I sat up in bed and stared at the door until the noise passed. The next morning, I got an email from a mutual friend named Kevin. Kevin had been Sebastian's roommate in college. He said Sebastian had called him at 2 a.m. asking if he knew where I was. Kevin said he told Sebastian he didn't know. Then Kevin said he got another call from Sebastian at 7 a.m. asking Kevin to come over to the apartment to help him with something. Kevin went over there. The apartment was torn apart. The dining table was flipped over. The TV screen was shattered. There were holes in the living room wall. Sebastian told Kevin that I had trashed the apartment before I left. He wanted Kevin to help him clean it up. Kevin said he looked at the holes in the wall. They were at Sebastian's eye level. Kevin was 5 feet 10 inches and had to look up at the holes. I was 5 feet 5 inches. Kevin said he didn't help clean. He left after 10 minutes. Kevin asked me what actually happened. I sent him the photos I had taken of the clean apartment before I left. The timestamp showed I had taken them the day Sebastian was flying home. Kevin said he was sorry. He said he should have seen the signs earlier. He said Sebastian had always been intense but he thought it was just Sebastian's personality. I got more emails over the next few days. Sebastian's mother sent one saying I had embarrassed the family. She said Sebastian could lose his job because of the criminal charges. She said I needed to call the district attorney and tell them it was all a misunderstanding. She said I needed to come home and apologize to Sebastian for leaving. I didn't respond to her email. Instead, I sent one email to everyone in our mutual friend group. I kept it short. I said Sebastian had installed cameras throughout our apartment without telling me. I said he had tried to access my bank account without permission. I said he had demanded I wear a tracking device. I said these things were not acceptable and I was getting divorced. I said I wished everyone well and I hoped they would think twice before dismissing concerning behavior in their own relationships. Sebastian sent an email in response. He said I was lying about the cameras. He said they were for home security and he had told me about them. This was not true. He said he was hurt that I didn't trust him. He said he only wanted to keep me safe. He said if I came back, we could go to counseling together. He said he would do whatever it took to fix things. I did not respond to his email either. Ellen filed for the restraining order. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. She said I could attend via video conference since I was in another state. I said that would be fine. I found an apartment on the 4th day. It was in a building with controlled access. You needed a key card to get into the lobby. There was a front desk with security during business hours. I gave the security team a photo of Sebastian. I told them he was not allowed in the building under any circumstances. They made a note in their system. I moved into the apartment on the 7th day. The boxes from the moving company had arrived at the storage facility. I hired a different moving company to bring them to my new place. I unpacked everything in one afternoon. I bought a new bed and a small couch from a furniture store. I bought dishes and silverware from a department store. I bought a TV but I didn't set it up. I put it in the closet still in the box. I went to work on the 8th day. My new office was smaller than my old one but it had a window. Patricia had emailed my new supervisor to explain that I was relocating for personal reasons. My new supervisor's name was Carl. He was maybe 50 years old with gray hair and glasses. He showed me around the facility. He introduced me to the team. Everyone was polite but nobody asked questions about why I had transferred so suddenly. I was fine with that. That evening, I got another email from Kevin. He said Sebastian had been fired from his job. The IT consulting firm had a policy about criminal charges. Sebastian's arrest at the airport had violated that policy. Kevin said Sebastian was blaming me for ruining his career. Kevin said Sebastian had shown up at his apartment the night before demanding to know if Kevin knew my new address. Kevin said he told Sebastian he didn't know. Kevin said Sebastian didn't believe him and accused Kevin of taking my side. Kevin said he hadn't heard from Sebastian since then. I changed my phone number the next day. I got a new carrier too. I only gave the new number to Patricia, Carl, Ellen, and my parents. I didn't give it to anyone from my old city. I thought about blocking everyone from my old life on social media but decided to just deactivate all my accounts instead. It seemed simpler. Ellen called me on the 10th day. She said Sebastian's lawyer had reached out about the divorce. Sebastian was refusing to sign anything. Ellen said that was fine. She said we would go through the court process. She said it would take about 6 months but the outcome would be the same. I asked if I had to go back to the old state for court hearings. She said maybe once or twice but most of it could be handled remotely. That night, I sat in my new apartment and looked around. The walls were bare. I hadn't hung up any pictures yet. The furniture looked temporary. I had my laptop and my phone and my boxes of clothes. I had my job and my bank account that Sebastian never managed to access. I didn't have much else. But I also didn't have cameras recording my every move. I didn't have someone calling me 6 times during dinner to ask where I was. I didn't have someone trying to put a tracker on me. I thought about calling my parents but I didn't. They knew I had gotten divorced but I hadn't explained why. They lived in Oregon and we talked maybe once a month. They had met Sebastian twice. Once at the wedding and once the year before at Christmas. They hadn't seemed to have strong opinions about him either way. I ordered takeout and ate it sitting on my new couch. Then I took a shower and went to bed at 9 p.m. Update 2: The restraining order hearing happened 3 weeks after I moved to Phoenix. I attended via video conference from a conference room at work. Ellen was in the courtroom. Sebastian was there with his lawyer. The deputy who had served the papers was there to testify. The judge asked the deputy to describe what happened at the airport. The deputy said he had approached Sebastian and identified himself. He said he handed Sebastian the divorce papers and explained what they were. He said Sebastian read the first page and then started yelling profanities. He said Sebastian was told to calm down multiple times. He said Sebastian then pushed him with both hands. The deputy said airport security had to help restrain Sebastian until police arrived. The judge asked Sebastian if this account was accurate. Sebastian said he had been surprised and upset. He said he didn't mean to push the deputy. He said it was a reaction. The judge pointed out that assault was assault regardless of intent. Sebastian's lawyer tried to argue that Sebastian had been emotionally distressed. The judge said that wasn't a legal defense for assaulting an officer. The judge granted the restraining order. Sebastian was required to stay at least 500 feet away from me. He was not allowed to contact me directly by phone, email, text, or social media. All communication had to go through lawyers. The order was good for 1 year. Sebastian tried to say something as the judge was finishing. The judge told him to be quiet. Sebastian kept talking. The judge held him in contempt. Sebastian's lawyer put his hand on Sebastian's arm to get him to stop talking. Sebastian finally shut up. After the hearing ended, Ellen called me. She said Sebastian had not taken it well. She said he had argued with the judge 4 separate times during the hearing. She said the judge had looked exhausted by the end of it. She said the judge had made a comment about Sebastian needing to learn when to stop talking. Ellen also said Sebastian's family had been at the courthouse. His mother and his brother Derek. They had apparently tried to approach Ellen during a recess to ask her to convince me to drop the divorce. Ellen said she told them that wasn't going to happen. She said Joan had cried and said I was tearing their family apart. Ellen said she walked away. 2 days after the hearing, I got a letter in the mail at my new apartment. It had no return address but the postmark was from my old city. Inside was a 4-page handwritten letter from Sebastian. The letter said he still loved me. It said he understood why I was upset, but I was overreacting. It said the cameras had been for our protection. It said there had been a string of burglaries in our neighborhood and he wanted to make sure we had footage if something happened. This was a lie. There had been no burglaries. The letter said he had only tried to access my bank account to check if I was overspending. It said I had a tendency to buy things impulsively and he was trying to help me budget better. This was also a lie. I had never been an impulsive spender. I had a spreadsheet where I tracked every purchase over $20. The letter said the tracker had been his way of making sure I was safe when he couldn't be there. It said women get kidnapped all the time and nobody ever finds them because there is no way to track their location. It said he couldn't live with himself if something happened to me and he hadn't done everything possible to prevent it. The letter said he was willing to go to counseling if I came back. It said he would do whatever I wanted. It said we had made vows and I was breaking those vows by leaving. It said his life was falling apart without me. It said I owed it to him to at least try to work things out. There was no apology anywhere in the letter. I scanned the letter and emailed it to Ellen. She said Sebastian had violated the restraining order by contacting me. She said we could file a motion to have him held in contempt again. I asked what that would accomplish. She said it would put him in jail for a few days and make it clear he couldn't ignore court orders. I told her to file the motion. Ellen filed it the next day. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, Ellen said we needed to start working on the divorce settlement. She said Sebastian's lawyer was still refusing to cooperate. She said we would need to go through mediation. I asked how long that would take. She said it depended on how reasonable Sebastian was willing to be. I got another letter the following week. This one was from Derek. He said I was being selfish. He said Sebastian had always been good to me. He said Sebastian's only crime was caring too much. He said their whole family was suffering because of the choices I had made. He said I needed to think about someone other than myself for once. I didn't respond to Derek's letter. I threw it away. The contempt hearing happened on schedule. I attended via video again. The judge was not happy. He asked Sebastian why he had sent me a letter when there was a restraining order explicitly prohibiting contact. Sebastian said he didn't think a letter counted as contact. The judge asked him what he thought contact meant. Sebastian said he thought it meant showing up at my house or calling me. The judge said contact meant any form of communication and that should have been obvious. The judge sentenced Sebastian to 72 hours in county jail. Sebastian's lawyer asked for leniency. The judge said no. He said Sebastian needed to learn that court orders applied to him. Sebastian was taken into custody right there in the courtroom. Ellen called me after and said she had never seen a judge lose patience that quickly. She said most judges gave warnings before imposing jail time for restraining order violations. She said this judge clearly thought Sebastian needed a reality check. Mediation started 2 weeks later. We had 4 sessions over the course of a month. They were all done via video conference. A mediator named Barbara ran the sessions. She had been doing this for 20 years according to her website. The first session was introductions and ground rules. The second session was Sebastian listing his demands. He wanted me to send an email to everyone I had told about the cameras and the tracker. He wanted the email to say I had exaggerated and Sebastian had done nothing wrong. He wanted me to pay him for the wages he lost when he got fired. He wanted me to pay him for emotional distress and defamation of character. Ellen told Barbara this was not realistic. Barbara agreed. Barbara asked Sebastian what he was willing to offer in return. Sebastian said he would agree to the divorce if I did everything he asked. Ellen said that wasn't how this worked. Sebastian said it should be. The third session was more of the same. Sebastian refused to budge on his demands. His lawyer tried to reason with him. Sebastian ignored his lawyer. Barbara tried to find middle ground. Sebastian said there was no middle ground. He said I had ruined his life and I needed to fix it. The fourth session ended early. Sebastian started yelling about how I was an ungrateful wife who didn't appreciate everything he had done for me. Barbara muted his microphone. Sebastian kept yelling even though nobody could hear him. Barbara said mediation had failed and she would be filing a report with the court. Ellen said we would have to go to trial. She said the judge would make the final decision about the divorce terms. She said based on Sebastian's behavior during mediation, the judge would likely not be sympathetic to him. The trial date was set for 8 weeks later. Update 3: the trial was scheduled for a Wednesday in early November. I flew back to my old state the day before. Ellen met me at the airport. We went to her office and reviewed everything one more time. She said Sebastian's lawyer had tried to get him to settle the day before the trial. Sebastian had refused. Ellen said Sebastian's lawyer seemed exhausted. The trial lasted 1 day. The judge heard testimony from both sides. Ellen presented the evidence about the cameras. She had photos I had taken of each camera location. She had a statement from the camera manufacturer confirming the model numbers were designed for covert surveillance. Ellen presented the evidence about the bank account access attempts. She had login records from my bank showing the failed attempts. Ellen also presented the emails Sebastian had sent after I left. She presented the letter Sebastian had sent despite the restraining order. She presented the deputy's testimony from the restraining order hearing. She presented Kevin's statement about the destroyed apartment and Sebastian's lie about me causing the damage. Sebastian's lawyer tried to argue that Sebastian had just been trying to keep me safe. The judge asked if Sebastian had discussed the cameras with me before installing them. Sebastian's lawyer said no, but that Sebastian had meant to. The judge asked when Sebastian had planned to tell me. Sebastian's lawyer didn't have an answer. The judge asked Sebastian directly why he hadn't told me about the cameras. Sebastian said he thought I would overreact. The judge asked why he thought I would overreact. Sebastian said because I always overreacted to things. The judge asked for an example. Sebastian said I had overreacted when he asked me to wear the tracker. The judge asked if Sebastian understood why someone might not want to be tracked. Sebastian said he understood, but that didn't make it reasonable. He said women needed protection whether they wanted it or not. The judge stared at him for a long time without saying anything. Sebastian's mother and Derek testified as character witnesses. They said Sebastian was a good person who loved his family. They said he had always been protective of the people he cared about. The judge asked if they had witnessed Sebastian's behavior in his marriage. They said no, but they knew their son and brother. The judge said their testimony was noted but not particularly relevant. The judge took a 15-minute recess. When he came back, he said he was granting the divorce. He said the marriage was irretrievably broken. He said Sebastian's behavior constituted a pattern of control and surveillance that made it impossible for me to feel safe in the relationship. The judge also ordered Sebastian to pay me $12,000 for emotional distress. Ellen had asked for this based on documentation of the tracking device demands via text message and email. The judge said the amount seemed appropriate given the circumstances. The judge told Sebastian he needed to seek help. He said Sebastian's need to control another person was not normal or healthy. He said Sebastian was never going to have a successful relationship until he addressed whatever was driving that behavior. Then the judge said if Sebastian loved himself as much as he seemed to think everyone else should, maybe he should just marry himself and save everyone else the trouble. Ellen said later that she had never heard a judge say something like that in open court. She said the judge had clearly run out of patience. I flew back to Phoenix that evening. The divorce was finalized 3 days later when the paperwork was processed. I got an email from Kevin 2 weeks after the trial. He said Sebastian had been hired at a construction company. The pay was about half what Sebastian had been making before. Kevin said Sebastian was working as a general laborer. Kevin said Sebastian blamed me for this too. I also got an email from a woman named Lisa. Lisa worked at the organization where Derek's girlfriend Michelle volunteered. Michelle apparently worked with domestic violence survivors. Lisa said she wanted me to know that Michelle had been let go from the organization. Lisa said someone had forwarded them a letter Michelle had written to me. I didn't know what letter she was talking about. I asked Lisa to send it to me. The letter was from Michelle. She worked in victim services according to her signature. The letter was 5 pages long. It detailed all the ways I had misunderstood what real abuse looked like. It said real abuse was physical violence. It said real abuse was financial control where someone had no access to money at all. It said my situation didn't qualify as abuse. It said I was exaggerating to get attention. The letter also said I was the real abuser. It said I had abused Sebastian by leaving him. It said I had abused him by telling people about his private behavior. It said I had abused him by getting him arrested and fired from his job. It said I had damaged his reputation in the community. It said everything that had happened to Sebastian was my fault. Lisa said the organization had a zero-tolerance policy for victim blaming. She said Michelle's letter violated every principle the organization stood for. She said Michelle had been fired immediately. Lisa also said Michelle had apparently thrown office supplies at people when she was told to leave. Lisa said Michelle had been banned from the building and was being billed for damages. Lisa asked if I was doing okay. I said I was. Lisa said if I ever needed resources or support, their organization had a national network. I thanked her and said I would keep that in mind. I haven't heard from anyone in Sebastian's family since then. I haven't heard from Sebastian either. Ellen said his 3 days in jail seemed to have made an impression. She said he was apparently complying with the restraining order now. I still live in Phoenix. I'm still working at the same facility. Carl is still my supervisor. The job is fine. The apartment is fine. The building security has never had to turn Sebastian away because he's never showed up. I joined a self-defense class last month. The instructor is a woman in her 50s who used to train military personnel. The class meets twice a week. I'm not particularly good at it yet, but I keep showing up. I also joined an online book club. We read 1 book a month and discuss it over video chat. Nobody in the book club knows about my divorce. They just know I moved to Phoenix for work. We talk about books and occasionally about our jobs or our pets or our weekend plans. It's the most normal conversation I've had in months. Last week, I found a cat in the parking lot behind my office building. It was small and skinny with matted black fur. It was missing most of its tail. It had 3 white paws and 1 black paw. It ran away when I got close, but I left food out. The next day, it was waiting by the door when I arrived at work. I took it to a vet. The vet said it was maybe 4 months old. She said the tail looked like it had been damaged when the cat was very young. She said it might have been the mother cat trying to clean the kitten after birth and accidentally biting too hard. She said it happens sometimes. The vet checked for a microchip. There wasn't one. I took the cat home. I named it Pepper because of the white paws. Pepper sleeps on my bed and attacks my feet when I walk around the apartment. Pepper also knocks things off the kitchen counter for no reason. The apartment feels less empty with Pepper in it. I'm not going home for the holidays. My parents asked if I wanted to fly to Oregon. I said maybe next year. They didn't push. I'll probably work on Thanksgiving and Christmas. Carl said anyone who wanted to pick up holiday shifts could have them. Several people on the team don't have family nearby. We talked about maybe ordering food and eating together in the break room. It's not a real plan yet, but it might happen. My phone doesn't ring 47 times anymore. Nobody asks me where I'm going when I leave my apartment. Nobody checks my bank account. Nobody watches me through cameras hidden in my own home. The apartment is quiet most of the time. Pepper purrs. That's about it. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My high school sweetheart turned toxic ex is now dating my sister and they humiliated me in their wedding speech. I never thought I'd be writing this. 3 days ago, my sister Sophie, 27F, married my ex-boyfriend Mark, 29M, and they used their wedding reception to publicly humiliate me in front of our entire family. I'm still in shock and trying to process everything that happened. For context, I, Eliza, 27F, met Mark during my freshman year of college when he was a senior. We clicked instantly and started dating. He was charming, attentive, and seemed perfect at first. Everyone thought we were the ideal couple, including my sister Sophie, who was my closest confidant at the time. But things started changing after the first year together. Mark gradually became more controlling. He constantly needed to know where I was, who I was with, and would check my phone regularly. At first, I thought it was just him being protective, but it escalated quickly. He would get upset if I spent time with my male friends, even childhood friends I'd known forever. He'd make comments about my clothes being too revealing when I was literally just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He'd guilt-trip me into canceling plans with friends because he needed me that day. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself or set boundaries, he'd manipulate the situation to make me believe I was being unreasonable or selfish. He was a master at gaslighting, making me question my own memories and perceptions until I felt like I was going crazy. I started second-guessing myself constantly and lost a lot of my confidence during those years. Despite the red flags, I stayed with him for 3.5 years. I was young, this was my first serious relationship, and I genuinely believed that if I just tried harder, communicated better, or was more understanding, things would improve. They never did. Shortly after my 21st birthday, Mark suddenly broke up with me. No real explanation, just that things weren't working out. He immediately blocked me on all social media platforms and my phone number. I was devastated and tried reaching out through mutual friends, but he had completely cut me off. It was like I never existed to him. 2 weeks later, I found out through a mutual friend that he was already dating someone else. The quick turnaround made me realize he had probably been planning to leave for a while or was even cheating on me. Sophie was there for me through the whole breakup. She listened to me cry for hours, brought me ice cream and comfort food when I couldn't get out of bed, and reassured me that I deserved better than Mark. She knew all the details of how controlling and manipulative he had been. She was the one who helped me see that what I had experienced was emotional abuse. For 4 years after the breakup, Mark and I had no contact whatsoever. I slowly healed, went to therapy, rebuilt my confidence, and even had a couple of healthy relationships. I was in a much better place. Then, on my 25th birthday, Mark suddenly texted me to wish me happy birthday. I was confused and honestly a bit angry that he thought he could just casually message me after everything. I didn't respond, but he kept texting over the next few days as if nothing had happened between us. Eventually, I had to block his number because he wouldn't stop. About 3 months after that strange encounter, Sophie called me all excited, saying she wanted me to come over because she had someone special she wanted me to meet. When I arrived at her apartment, Mark was sitting on her couch. I nearly walked right back out the door. Sophie explained that they had met through a work connection, they're both in marketing, a few months prior and had started dating. She claimed she hadn't told me earlier because she knew it would be complicated, but they were getting serious, and she wanted me to be happy for her. I was stunned. Sophie had been my shoulder to cry on, she had seen firsthand how broken I was after the relationship ended, and she knew all the manipulative things Mark had done. Yet there she was, excitedly holding his hand and looking at him adoringly. When I pulled her aside to talk privately, she insisted that Mark had changed and wasn't the same person anymore. She said he had admitted to her that he treated me poorly and had grown from the experience. She begged me to give their relationship a chance and not to make her choose between her sister and the man she loved. I tried to stay calm. I told Sophie that while I wanted her to be happy, I couldn't pretend to be okay with this. I explained that Mark had caused me serious emotional trauma, and having him back in my life in any capacity would be harmful to my mental health. I never demanded she break up with him, I just said I needed distance from both of them for my own well-being. Sophie didn't take it well. She accused me of being stubborn and unforgiving, saying I was trying to control who she could date out of spite. Our conversation ended with her in tears and me walking out, feeling betrayed by the person I had trusted most. Over the next 2 years, our previously close relationship deteriorated completely. At family gatherings where we had once been inseparable, we now avoided each other entirely. What hurt even more was discovering that Sophie and Mark had been spreading vicious rumors about me within our family. They told cousins, aunts, and uncles that I had been the problem in our relationship, claiming I had flirted with other guys in front of Mark, that I had been financially dependent on him during college, and most outrageously, that I had cheated on him, which is why we broke up. All completely false. I chose not to engage with these rumors. I figured family members who had known me my whole life wouldn't believe such obvious lies, and I didn't want to create more drama by defending myself. I just kept my distance and focused on my own life. 6 months ago, I heard through my mother that Sophie and Mark had gotten engaged. I wasn't surprised, and honestly, I didn't care much at that point. As expected, I didn't receive an invitation to their wedding, which was fine by me. The last thing I wanted was to watch my sister marry my abusive ex. The wedding was 3 days ago. My parents attended out of respect for my aunt, Sophie's mother, Judge Rebecca, though they were uncomfortable with the situation. Around 9 p.m. on the wedding night, my phone started blowing up with messages from various family members who were at the reception. Apparently, during their speech, Sophie and Mark had decided to take the opportunity to publicly humiliate me. Without using my name directly, they made multiple references to Mark's toxic ex who wasn't present at the wedding. They repeated all the false accusations they'd been spreading, that I had been clingy and controlling, financially dependent, and unfaithful. They even added new lies, claiming I had manipulated Mark and isolated him from his friends. The most shocking part came at the end when they announced that going forward, family members would need to choose sides. They would not attend any family events where I was present. Essentially, they were forcing our entire extended family to pick between us. My parents were so disgusted they immediately left the reception, along with several other relatives who found the speech inappropriate and cruel. My phone was flooded with messages of support, with family members assuring me they never believed the rumors and were appalled by Sophie and Mark's behavior. When I heard about this public humiliation, something in me snapped. After 2 years of silence, I decided it was time to defend myself. I dug through old backups and found screenshots of text conversations with Mark that clearly showed his controlling and manipulative behavior. There were messages where he berated me for spending time with male classmates on a group project, texts where he monitored my whereabouts, and conversations where he twisted my words to make me feel guilty for having normal boundaries. I posted these screenshots online without comment, letting Mark's own words speak for themselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Family members confirmed they had never believed Sophie and Mark's accusations, and many more apparently left the wedding after the speech than I initially realized. Most devastating for Sophie was her mother's reaction. Aunt Rebecca, who was a federal judge and had been financially supporting Sophie's struggling jewelry business, was horrified by her daughter's dishonesty and cruelty. According to my parents, she confronted Sophie at the wedding about the speech, and when Sophie doubled down on her lies, Aunt Rebecca left as well. Now, Sophie and Mark are desperately calling and messaging me, begging me to forgive them and convince Aunt Rebecca to resume financial support. Sophie had apparently been planning to close her failing business after the wedding and would be even more dependent on her mother's money going forward. I haven't responded to any of their messages. Part of me feels like I should be the bigger person and help my sister, despite everything she's done. But another part feels like she's finally facing the consequences of her actions after 2 years of trying to destroy my reputation. Am I the asshole for refusing to help them after they tried to publicly humiliate me at their own wedding? Update 1. It's been a week since the wedding disaster, and I wanted to give you all an update since so many people commented with advice and support. First off, thank you for validating that I'm not crazy for refusing to help Sophie and Mark. Some of the comments really helped me work through the guilt I was feeling. A few people asked why my parents attended the wedding in the first place if they knew about the situation between me, Sophie, and Mark. The truth is, they weren't fully aware of the extent of the rumors Sophie and Mark had been spreading. Sophie and Mark were strategic. They only shared their lies with cousins and relatives in our generation, keeping the older family members in the dark. My parents knew Sophie and I had a falling out when she started dating Mark, but I hadn't shared all the details with them because I didn't want to put them in the middle or force them to take sides. They attended out of respect for Aunt Rebecca and to maintain family peace, not knowing what Sophie and Mark were planning. As soon as they heard the wedding speech, they immediately left and called me to make sure I was okay. They've been incredibly supportive since then, assuring me I have no obligation to help Sophie after what she did. As for the current situation, I've blocked both Sophie and Mark on all social media platforms and their phone numbers, but they're relentless. They've created multiple new accounts to message me and have been sending emails since that's the only way they can reach me now. The desperation is palpable in their messages. From what I've gathered through family members, Aunt Rebecca is absolutely furious with Sophie. She's told Sophie that she won't resume any financial support until I personally tell her that I've forgiven Sophie. This puts me in an incredibly uncomfortable position because I know Sophie is now trying to get me to intercede for purely financial reasons, not because she's genuinely sorry. Sophie had been running a small jewelry business for the past 3 years, but it never really took off. Aunt Rebecca had been covering most of her expenses, including the business costs, her apartment rent, and even the lavish wedding they just had. According to my cousin Jen, Sophie had been planning to shut down the business right after the honeymoon and was counting on continued support from her mother while she figured out her next steps, which, knowing Sophie, could take years. I've spent a lot of time thinking about whether I should help her. For 2 years, I silently endured their rumors and gossip. I never retaliated, never spread stories about them, never tried to turn family members against them. I simply kept my distance and focused on my own life. But they couldn't leave well enough alone. They had to use their wedding, what should have been the happiest day of their lives, to try to destroy my reputation and force family members to choose sides. After discussing this with my parents, close friends, and considering all your comments, I've decided I won't help them. Sophie is 27 years old, the same age as me. She's educated, capable, and has opportunities. She's always been able to charm her way into and out of situations, which is why she's never had to face real consequences before. Mark has a decent job in marketing and can support them both if necessary. This might be the wake-up call Sophie needs to finally take responsibility for her life and actions. To reduce some of the drama, I've taken down my post with the screenshots. Everyone in our family who needed to see them already has, and I don't need acquaintances and work colleagues asking questions about the situation. I've said what needed to be said, the truth is out there, and now I'm focusing on moving forward. I've started meditating again, something I did regularly before all this drama started, and I'm trying to process my anger and hurt in healthier ways. The betrayal from Sophie cuts deep. She was my best friend growing up, and to see her not only date my abusive ex but actively try to destroy my reputation is something I'm still struggling to comprehend. Some of you suggested I write Sophie and Mark a final message explaining why I won't be helping them and then block them again. I considered this but decided against it. Any contact from me at this point would just give them hope that they could eventually wear me down. Their apologies aren't genuine, they're sorry they're facing consequences, not sorry for what they did. One thing that's helped me feel better about my decision is remembering how Sophie reacted when I first told her I wasn't comfortable with her dating Mark. She accused me of being jealous, said I was trying to control her life, and insisted I should get over my past with Mark. She showed zero empathy for my feelings or understanding of why having my abusive ex back in my life would be traumatic. She made her choice 2 years ago, prioritizing a relationship with Mark over her relationship with me. Now she's living with the consequences of that choice. I hope Sophie and Mark find something more productive to focus on than orchestrating campaigns against me. Their obsession with me and need to vilify me to justify their relationship is exhausting and unhealthy for everyone involved. I'm moving on with my life, and I hope they can do the same. Thank you all for your support and advice. It truly helped me work through this difficult situation and feel confident in my decision to maintain my boundaries. Update 2. It's been a month since Sophie and Mark's wedding, and unfortunately, they've escalated their behavior rather than backing down. After about a week of desperately trying to contact me, they gave up when they realized I wasn't going to respond or intercede with Aunt Rebecca on their behalf. Now, they've gone back to spreading rumors, but with an even more ridiculous narrative. According to my cousins who've had the misfortune of running into them, Sophie and Mark are telling anyone who will listen that I'm deliberately turning Aunt Rebecca against them because I want to secure her inheritance for myself. This is absurd on multiple levels. First, my parents are well off. My dad is a successful cardiac surgeon and my mom runs a thriving interior design business. I have no financial concerns. Second, I have my own successful career as a software engineer at a major tech company. The idea that I'm plotting to get Aunt Rebecca's money is not only false but insultingly illogical. Yet Sophie and Mark are relentlessly pushing this conspiracy theory. They're cornering family members whenever they run into them, which happens frequently since we all live in the same city. Sophie's particularly persistent when she encounters our cousins at the local farmers market on weekends or at the coffee shop near where several family members work. Most relatives are actively avoiding them now, but Sophie and Mark are making it difficult. They've shown up at restaurants where family gatherings were happening, despite not being invited, attempted to crash a cousin's birthday party, and even waited outside our grandmother's house to confront aunts and uncles as they left Sunday dinner. Their behavior has become so erratic that family members are texting each other warnings when Sophie and Mark are spotted in common areas. My cousin Allison had to hide in a department store dressing room last week when she saw them approaching, as she didn't have the energy for another confrontation. I was trying to stay out of it and let them self-destruct, but last weekend was the final straw. My cousin Ben's wife Emma is pregnant with their first child, and they were hosting a small gender reveal party. Sophie somehow found out about it, though they weren't invited, and showed up uninvited with Mark. When they weren't allowed in, they caused a scene in the front yard, with Sophie crying hysterically about family loyalty and Mark threatening to expose Ben for some imagined slight from their teenage years. Emma was so upset by the confrontation that she started having contractions and had to be taken to the hospital as a precaution. Thankfully she and the baby are fine, but the incident was incredibly stressful for everyone involved. After hearing about this, I finally broke my silence and called Aunt Rebecca to tell her about Sophie and Mark's continued harassment of family members and the incident at Ben and Emma's house. She was absolutely furious. According to my mom, who spoke with Aunt Rebecca afterward, she immediately called Sophie and told her in no uncertain terms that her behavior was unacceptable. Aunt Rebecca made it clear to Sophie that even if I did forgive her, which at this point seems highly unlikely, she wouldn't resume financial support given Sophie's ongoing behavior. She told Sophie she was deeply disappointed in her actions and needed to grow up and take responsibility for her life instead of blaming others for her problems. When Sophie tried to argue, Aunt Rebecca simply hung up on her and blocked her number. This apparently sent Sophie into a rage because shortly after, I received an email from a new address, since I'd blocked all their previous ones, with both Sophie and Mark's names signed at the bottom. The email was mostly incoherent, filled with accusations and profanity, but ended with a clear threat that I would pay for ruining their lives and that they would make sure I regretted ever crossing them. I've saved this email as evidence in case things escalate further. I responded with a single, clear message: if they attempted anything against me or continued harassing family members, I would not hesitate to involve the police and pursue legal action against them. I reminded them that Aunt Rebecca is a federal judge who takes threats very seriously, and that their behavior was crossing the line from family drama into potential criminal territory. For now, I've installed additional security cameras at my house and alerted my workplace security about the situation. I'm hoping my warning will deter them from taking things further, but their behavior has become increasingly unhinged, and I'm not taking any chances. Most of the family is firmly on my side at this point, horrified by Sophie and Mark's actions. Even Sophie's father, my Uncle Ted, who divorced Aunt Rebecca years ago and tends to spoil Sophie, called me to apologize for her behavior and assure me he wasn't supporting their antics. I'll update again if anything significant happens, but hopefully, they'll finally realize they're only hurting themselves and move on with their lives. Update 3. 4 days ago, I received another threatening email from Sophie and Mark stating I would face consequences for my actions. Despite my clear warning about police involvement, they did something unbelievably stupid last night that has changed this situation from family drama to a legal matter. At approximately 1 a.m., my home security system alerted me that someone was attempting to enter through my back door. I immediately checked the security camera feed on my phone and saw 2 figures in dark clothing trying to force the lock. Though I suspected it might be Sophie and Mark, I wasn't taking any chances with my safety. I called the police and reported a break-in attempt in progress. While waiting for the police to arrive, I stayed in my locked bedroom with my phone, watching the security feed. The intruders gave up on the back door after a few minutes and moved to try a window, but my security system frustrated them there as well. When they heard sirens approaching, they panicked and ran toward the wooded area behind my property. The police arrived within 15 minutes and quickly found Sophie and Mark hiding about a block away. They had actually dressed in all black clothing like cartoon burglars and had biked to my neighborhood to avoid their car being recognized. When the officers caught them, Sophie immediately started making excuses, claiming they just wanted to talk to me and I had been ignoring their messages. When questioned further, Mark admitted they weren't planning to steal anything but wanted to scare me into dropping the family drama and talking to Aunt Rebecca on their behalf. He seemed to think this admission would somehow improve their situation, but breaking and entering is still breaking and entering, regardless of the motive. Sophie broke down crying when the officers handcuffed her, begging me not to press charges and saying it was all a misunderstanding. Mark just glared at me silently with pure hatred in his eyes. After providing my statement to the police, I went back to bed since I had an important presentation at work the next morning. The officers took Sophie and Mark to the station for booking. I learned this morning that Sophie used her one phone call to contact Aunt Rebecca, desperately hoping she would bail them out. According to my mother, who spoke with Aunt Rebecca afterward, she refused to even go to the station. She told Sophie that she was on her own and needed to face the consequences of her actions for once in her life. Mark apparently called his parents, who reluctantly posted bail for both of them early this morning. They're currently facing charges of attempted breaking and entering, trespassing, and harassment. Their initial court appearance is scheduled for next week. I spoke with the district attorney's office today and made it clear that I absolutely want to press charges. I'm also applying for a restraining order against both of them. Their behavior has escalated from petty rumor spreading to actual criminal activity, and I need legal protection from their increasingly unhinged actions. Some family members, particularly on Sophie's father's side, have suggested I drop the charges since she's still family and this could affect her future employment opportunities. I understand their concern, but I've reached my limit. For 2 years I silently endured their rumors. When they publicly humiliated me at their wedding, I only defended myself with proof of their lies. When they continued harassing family members, I warned them about potential legal consequences. They've had multiple opportunities to stop this destructive behavior, but instead, they chose to escalate to the point of trying to break into my home in the middle of the night. I'm no longer willing to protect Sophie from the consequences of her actions at the expense of my own safety and well-being. Aunt Rebecca has been incredibly supportive of my decision. As a judge, she understands better than most the importance of maintaining boundaries and the legal system's role in protecting individuals from harassment. She's deeply disappointed in Sophie but said she wasn't entirely surprised given Sophie's history of avoiding responsibility. My parents have also been amazing throughout this ordeal. They've helped me research security systems, offered to let me stay with them if I felt unsafe, and supported my decision to pursue legal action. I'm lucky to have such a solid support system when a significant part of my family has betrayed me so thoroughly. I'm still processing the reality that my own sister tried to break into my home to intimidate me. Despite everything Sophie had done up to this point, I never imagined she would cross this line. It's forced me to accept that the sister I grew up with, the person I shared secrets and dreams with for so many years, is gone. The Sophie I knew would never have done something like this, regardless of the circumstances. Going forward, I plan to maintain the restraining order indefinitely and have no intention of ever reconciling with either Sophie or Mark. Some relationships simply cannot be repaired, and this is definitely one of them. I'm focusing on healing from this trauma and moving forward with the supportive family members and friends who have stood by me. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support throughout this nightmare. Your perspectives helped me maintain my boundaries and take the necessary steps to protect myself when things escalated. I never imagined my sister's relationship with my ex would lead to criminal charges, but here we are. Sometimes the people we think we know the best are capable of actions we could never have predicted.